Hello.
Hello.
We're just jumping right into it. So, this is season 2, episode, I think number 6 or 7, one of those numbers of the podcast, In the Know in the 920. I am Nick, and today I am joined by Eric Cernjar. He is the director of marketing for Habitat for Humanity. So, we're going to learn all about the cool stuff that he does with them. And you might notice that Kelly Davies isn't here today. We miss her dearly. She's not dead or anything, but she's just off for today. So, let's hop right into this.
In the Know in the 920.
Woo!
It's very
All
cheerful.
right. Yeah, it's fun. Kelly spent a lot of time picking that music out,
bet.
so it was a whole process. Yeah, so thank you for being here today.
Of course.
We tried to have you on one other time, and our construction plans just did not allow that. As our viewers have seen in the last couple of episodes, we've just been constantly shifting, rearranging. None of our podcast sets have been the same. It's still not permanent yet, but we're getting closer. So, yeah, thank you for being accommodating.
Absolutely. It's cool. It's a good setup. I think
Yeah.
it'll work well for you guys.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It used to be a warehouse. It still kind of feels a little bit like that, but we're getting more office-y in here. So, it's pretty cool.
One day at a time.
Yeah. So, Eric, you are director of marketing for Habitat for Humanity.
Yes.
And I would assume that probably a lot of people that are watching our show are probably familiar, at least with the name Habitat for Humanity. You know, it's kind of a big deal. But I guess just in case, anybody's been living under a rock, what do you guys do?
And there's a lot of things that I thought I understood before I took the job. So I've been
Yeah.
with Habitat for about 4 years, and things I assumed that aren't necessarily true. One, so I did not realize Habitat for Humanity, really there's about 1,000 of them across the country.
Wow.
So there's about 32, 33 in Wisconsin alone. So, for example,
Okay.
there's one in Green Bay. There's one in, so we're the Fox Cities Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
And our affiliate represents Calumet County, Outagamie County, Wapaka County, and northern Winnebago County.
Wow.
So then there's one. Oshkosh has its own, and there's many around the state. Northern Wisconsin and Madison has their own, Milwaukee, etc.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our service area for our affiliate. This affiliate's been around for about 30 years, just over. And what do? We focus on homeownership opportunities for lower income families and individuals in kind of our service area.
Cool. Yeah, and we care a lot about people being able to own homes. It's sort of a big deal for us too. So.
Indeed. The partnership makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess I never really realized it was that big of a company.
Yeah.
'Cause I knew it was beyond Wisconsin, but I never knew it was 1,000 locations. That's crazy.
Yeah. I didn't know that either. And actually, the part that surprised me more than anything was, I mean, relatively speaking, right? There's big metro areas across the country and several in Wisconsin. Out of those 1,000, we're in the top 30 as far as homes produced on an annual or cumulative basis.
Wow.
Which, it's not like Appleton is tiny, but it's not a huge area compared to, some of the bigger metros, right? Which says a lot about the community, because we're essentially the vehicle, right? It's a combination of support from individuals, corporate, volunteers, all these people coming together, and we help to make it happen, but it's obviously all, for nonprofits, it's impossible without the support of the community. And this is a pretty generous community in many ways.
Right. Wow. That's cool. Top 30. Yeah, because I think, the list of cities in America that have like 1 million people is like 20 or 25, something like that. So, yeah, that's crazy to compare to that. Wow.
Yeah, I think we're kind of punching above our weight.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Good leadership. John, who's the CEO of our Habitat affiliate, has been there for almost the whole ride, over 25 years.
Okay.
So ton of credit to him. Good, solid board of directors, and like I said, the community is probably number one. Is the generosity and it continues to increase. I mean, everybody sees the need, especially these days, right?
Right.
But that's really encouraging to see that everybody's in it and wants to see us, tackle the problems.
Yeah. Cool. So, as director of marketing, how does your day-to-day look with the company?
Anybody in a nonprofit will say, I wear many hats,
Yeah.
and I think that's very common. The all other duties assigned part of the job description is super relevant for my role and any role. But I mean, generally, the marketing part of it, making sure that the right people understand who we are and what we do. Right, we have a couple
Yeah.
big groups, supporters, whether that's volunteers or donors. You know, partner families that we serve, and making sure that they understand what our programs are and who is eligible for them and how they can apply and those kind of things. And then we kind of have this extra arm of, we have this restore that we manage on the west side, and that's us. So it's, you got to wear a retail hat for part of it as well. And part of what I've learned quickly is one of the bigger obstacles is, if so I got this job, I was super excited. This is my first nonprofit gig. I've never worked in nonprofit before.
Sure.
So I'm telling my friends and family that I'm at Habitat. And what I really quickly learned is that almost everybody assumes we just give people houses for free. And that's a very common misconception, but it's actually kind of damaging, because a lot of people would not necessarily be supportive of a nonprofit that doesn't require, its beneficiaries to have some sort of skin in the game, right?
Right.
So a good chunk of my job is battling misconceptions of what people thought we were that we actually aren't.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, yeah, and I guess you bring up a good point too, is because a lot of people probably don't know the process. Like, how does Habitat actually go about, getting people houses?
Yeah. It can be, so it's a journey. I would say generally from the moment that someone applies to the time that someone's getting the keys, it's about 18 months.
Okay.
There's a sweat equity component to this, right? Where you're putting in, depends on family size and such, but 200 to 400 hours of work. Some of that is volunteer work towards you're building your own house, building other families that are in the program at the same time, taking educational courses and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So part of it is setting aside that time to make sure you do it, and that's what that time frame is. But really, it's a combination of three things: your income, your willingness to partner, and your ability to pay, because it's ultimately a mortgage.
Right.
The secret sauce is that it's a 0% mortgage, and for people in real estate, understand what that means. And if you do the math on what a 6% mortgage is, right, over 30 years, and a 0%,
right, it's like half the price.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars for sure. So yeah, that journey is kind of oftentimes starts with general level of understanding of who we are. There's many other very helpful nonprofits in the community that kind of feed families to us based on where they're at in their situation, whether they felt that they might be eligible and a good fit for the program. Website and a lot of other places that there's general interest, and then it's kind of getting people to understand what all the criteria are and lining up from there.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I can understand why it would be. You said it like 18 months. I can understand why that pipeline would be a little bit longer than the general like home buying process, because there's a lot of hurdles to go through and all that, but like you said, it is really worth it.
Right. And not only that, I mean, in most cases we're starting with a blank piece of ground, right? With even the hole dug for the foundation. That process, you can build a house quickly, but I mean, we try to bring them along for the journey, other people in the community along with the journey, and on the build sites and all that. Is just beneficial to get a better sense of what this is, and seeing the partner families working alongside them. I think it's part of helpful with messaging to see that they're called partner families for a reason, right?
Right. That's cool. There was actually, I know that my grandparents had a Habitat house built on their street just a few years ago. And it had always been a vacant lot for like 60 years. I think they've lived there. And that whole time, it just nothing was ever there. And then one day there was just a group of people there digging the hole, like you said. It was just crazy to see it go from, just nothing to all of a sudden somebody has a house.
Was that in this area?
Yeah, it was in Appleton, east side of Appleton.
Cool.
So, yeah, it was awesome. And then, yeah, man, the one thing I will complain about quick is I miss the Restore that was over here by us. I used to stop in there all the time, but yeah, I understand consolidating it to just have one in the area. It's just me being picky.
No, you're not. Believe me, I hear a lot of community feedback in a lot of different forums, and I would say you're not the only person that feels that way. Totally
Yeah.
get it. Yeah, operationally, it was challenging to run them both and run them both well, right?
Yeah.
But it's missed, and I can tell even for people that continue to visit the West Side store that's missed. We hear it. I understand the concern, but we have to do what we have to do. Ultimately, our job is to help people,
Right.
And if that's our goal, we got to do what's best for the mission sometimes.
And then, yeah, so the West Side store is over by Costco, right?
Yep.
Okay. I feel like I can see it in my mind. I just can't think of exactly where that
Yeah.
location would be.
Yeah,
yeah.
right there, Rough of Integrity Way.
Okay.
So we just celebrated 5 years not that long ago.
Oh, cool.
So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Woo, happy 5th birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting.
So, what would you say are like major challenges that you guys face? I can see there being a lot.
There's quite a few. I'll try to think. Well, the one that jumps out to me, this also being in real estate, it's not very affordable to do anything housing wise
No.
anymore. Rent or owning or anything, right?
Yeah.
I'm about to date myself, but I'm old now and I can do that. So when my now wife, then fiance, we got our first apartment together. This was '04. We got a nice, like it's not pristine, but pretty nice 2-bedroom apartment with a garage, 1-stall garage for like $550, and that included utilities.
Okay.
It sounds like, I mean, when you hear people talk about they could go to the movies and it only cost a nickel, like I assume that's how I sound when I say things like that now. But I mean, that's 20 years, and in 20
Yeah.
years, like we effectively tripled what rent is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And wages didn't triple, you know. It's tough out there. So, and that's not just the rental game. Real estate and housing wise, as you know, what pricing and appraisals and market
Yeah.
what homes are listing for, and it really that's like 5 years, right? Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
2020. Right when I started, just before I started working here, our houses, we build modest houses, like 11 to 1,200 square foot.
Right.
Nobody's building, well, I shouldn't say nobody, few people are building new construction type houses in that type of modest size.
Right. And it's
Right.
still a good size, though.
It's plenty,
Yeah.
right? But not what and I'll remind me to talk about that in a minute. But
Okay.
so modest homes, our homes were appraising pre-COVID to 2020-ish for like $160,000.
Okay.
We're building the same houses today that we were building 5 years ago. Same footprint, same materials, same everything. It's like 280.
Yeah. That
In
sounds
5
about right.
years. So area median income is a phrase that we use, and it's, if you take the very average person, what they're making, and that's median, that's 100%, right?
Yeah.
And anything less than that is below average, of the area median income.
Right.
We serve families 30%, really it's more like 40% to 80% of area median income, and we don't serve above that. That's kind of part of the stipulations of being a Habitat affiliate. That group of people also didn't have their wages triple, right?
Right.
And in 5 short years to have our houses go to increase $120,000, that's just pricing people out, right?
Yeah.
So what's the challenge? That's a very big challenge. And with that, I mean, there's I don't know if it's expectations or just pressure we put on ourselves, but we want to meet the need, right?
Right.
What all of that does is when housing is that inexpensive or that unaffordable, is the line for our services just gets longer, right? And there's more people that could very well use those services, and we want to meet that need. And even if 20 years ago we were building 2 or 3 houses, and now we're building 20 in a year, like the line is still longer than it's ever been,
Yeah.
right? So from a challenge perspective, I think we all, like in our space and Habitat space, not only our affiliate but across the country, we feel that, and we want to be part of the solution, and I think we're all pushing to do so. But it's challenging to know the state of the state and what we can do about it, and all you can do is just impact as many people as possible, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing is, you want to get to as many worthy, deserving people as you can. And yeah, just if you could just magically snap your fingers and there'd be 500 houses all of a sudden, yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, it's tough.
It takes a lot of time, money, and effort. So someday, someday, and that rise, if we got from 2 to 5 to we're building a year to 10 to down to 20. I mean, I see a day that we'll be at 40. I know that's ambitious and it's giving people heartburn. But I mean, justifiably so. But that's where we should be aiming, right?
Yeah, it's you're almost at a house a week at that point,
right?
Every 10 days, 9 days, something like that. So
yeah, it's particularly complicated because Wisconsin is cold for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
And we need to, that requires a lot of thinking of different ways about going about our business, Yeah,
there's a lot of planning that needs to go into that building process because I've been seeing it here lately too. It's, like you can't pour concrete until May, so you can't dig foundations for 6 months of the year. So yeah, it is a tricky thing.
We'll figure it out, but it's going to be complicated, and it's definitely going to have some heartburn. And I think that, what else I think about is challenges. Obviously, for the most part, we've been talking about new home construction, and I think that's our bread and butter, and that's what Habitat for Humanity is known for. But the reality is we do a lot more than that, and not just the Restore. Most people don't know that Habitat has anything to do with the Restore, including myself. When I got here, I didn't know that those things were related. But we do a lot on the home repair side too. So, I mean, you talk about meeting the need. If someone's house gets into such disrepair that they can't live there anymore and that nobody can live there anymore, I mean, it's essentially another home that's out of the market, right? And preservation starts to become pretty important. And you can, the dollar probably goes a little bit further than new construction, right? And in some cases, it's one critical repair, like a roof or something like that, that would be a deal breaker. Someone couldn't be in their home without it. You could get mold issues and stuff, but if you address that one issue, it allows someone to maintain their property and stay in their home. And when the goal is to have net more houses that are affordable, keeping people in their homes is arguably just as important as getting new stuff in the supply side.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. Like you were saying, if you end up with just a rundown, derelict house, now you're not just looking at the cost of building on an empty lot. You're looking at the cost of building plus bulldozing and removing all these materials. Yeah, so it's even more expensive at that point. Yeah, you might as well just stay living in the nice house that you've got.
Right. So we are actually in the process. So this isn't live yet, but we had a home repair program. It will be live in the next couple months. The need's there, and we're kind of retooling because we see the need and what does that look like, and make sure it's a good experience for the homeowner, right, and all those things, and make it something that's affordable and accessible. But I'm excited about it. I think that we can help a lot of people in that space.
So, like, what's the full scope of repairs? Like, is it limited to any specific stuff? Like,
oh man, we're having those conversations. Like yesterday or Friday, we had a lot of them. So I don't have a full answer yet, but I would say there's probably going to be a gamut of small scale stuff, right? Railings. Decks, that kind of stuff, right? And it could go all the way to windows. Like sometimes it's drafty, sometimes they're moldy, right? And or rotting out or those kind of things. I'd say roofs. I think 2.0 or 3.0 of this thing, we envision a day where we can do some more urgent need type things. Like it's February and my furnace went out.
Oh yeah.
We're not really in a space to tackle that stuff yet, but we see it. We know what happens. And we'd like to add some value and help some people in that space. I don't think we're ready yet, but I'd say to be continued on what the full scope is, but we're going to try to be fairly clear on what isn't in scope with that. But,
Yeah, because that's part of, running a nonprofit too, is you got to figure out, like, how far can we extend ourselves on this? And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because not only with repairs, but with new construction and everything, in many cases we're the bank,
right?
So we have to take care of today and we have to take care of tomorrow because we want to maintain our status, be in business and be able to help people for the long haul. So we got to be, that's tough, as you have to make some tough calls sometimes because you want to make sure you're around to help people tomorrow too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you got to figure out where you're drawing the line, because you do have a heart, and it's like, I really want to make everybody's dreams come true, but how how do you ensure the future, like you
Right.
said?
It's
Yeah.
tough. I mean, that's tough. It's because the need's real, but I mean, I think we found a balance with that. But yes, it is hard, and sometimes that means saying no, and no one likes to do that. I mean, in my experience, all the people at our affiliate, I mean, they're in it for the right reasons. They care about the community. They care about the people that they're serving. They want to see us make a difference. So it's particularly hard saying no in that case versus, I come from for-profit life, and it doesn't feel the same,
Right.
as saying no to something there than here.
Right. Yeah, when it's, for-profit stuff, it's like, it's fine. Go figure that out yourself.
Right. Right.
But yeah. So I guess what's sort of like the size of your volunteer pool? Does that change constantly? Do you have like a lot of like active people?
Yeah. So we have something we call the senior crew.
Okay.
Senior meaning in terms of longevity with the organization.
Okay.
I'd say there happens to be some correlation that those that have more discretionary time to volunteer tend to be older, retired, empty nesters, and that kind of stuff. Not always, but often. But yeah, we have like a couple hundred people who are pretty dedicated, showing up on a regular basis, meaning multiple times per week.
Wow. That's cool.
So we talk about like the network, these 1,000+ affiliates, and one of the things I've learned is that as far as how we're defining senior crew, I think we have the biggest one in the country.
Wow, that's really cool.
And that's part of like I rewind, I wasn't here, but I think about how we got to where we are. I mean, it was a staff of 2 and a ton of volunteers, right? And a lot of these volunteers have been along for the ride for 10+ years, maybe 20+. So that's been really, really encouraging. So we have this group, I'd say a couple hundred that are super dedicated, and we get a lot of people who show up a couple times a year, and a lot of newbies. And I'd say a chunk of them return. Generally, what I'm hearing, and I'm really happy to hear this, is that they're having a good experience, whether it's at the restore or it's on a construction site or at the office. Sometimes we need some help there. But we're seeing return visitors. I mean, as a marketing person and as a business person, anytime you see people coming back to do something again, especially when it's to give their time for free, it's a really good sign that they're having a good experience and they're getting reward out of it and they're seeing the benefit of their time, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And just last year so we started tracking this stuff more diligently, over 1 million volunteer hours in total.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time when you really put it all together.
I know.
So we were talking about volunteers, so we covered the senior crew. I guess one other thing with that is, how do people volunteer, get involved, help out?
Absolutely. foxcitieshabitat.org/volunteer. I wish I had the magic that I could put like the QR code on this or something. But super simple. We actually just created a new volunteer software. It's called Galaxy Digital. Most people probably don't care about the details, but it's easy to sign up. It's easy to find what you're looking for and the type of volunteer experience that you want. Please do. I would say, especially on the construction side, it's perceived to be intimidating.
Yeah.
I would have generally said you don't want me on a build site, right? Like I can use a drill and stuff, but you don't want me. What I would have said, but honestly, that's their expectation, is they get a lot of people that show up that don't have a lot of skills, and they like training. They will make sure it's safe. They'll make sure that you know what you're doing. And you'll have fun while you're doing it. We've kind of said this already, but there's a reason people come back, and a lot of them were people who never had any technical abilities before, right? And have never tried to work on a construction site before. So don't be intimidated. You'll get all the resources that you need. Show up with a good attitude, and you'll have a good time.
Cool. Yeah, I honestly feel like, from the people that we've worked with in the past, where we meet like young first-time home buyers, and a lot of them are intimidated about owning a home just because they're like, I don't know how to fix this and that and the other thing. But you meet these people that come back and it's their second home. They don't care about a thing. They're like, oh yeah, I've fixed that. It's fine. So yeah, just having that little bit of hands-on experience makes people so much more comfortable with owning their own home.
Super good point. Especially with their partner families, right?
Yeah.
Because usually they've never owned a home before. And I remember when I bought my first home, I was way over my head as far as understanding how to do things. And as I said, I'm not the most handy person. I've had to learn some skills along the way. But when you've been there from foundation pouring to finishing a house and painting and everything in between, and you've seen it all happen. You might not retain all of it, but you're going to have a general understanding of how stuff works, and you at least know who to ask some questions about, right? And I think it's one of quite a few reasons why they're generally, our families are set up for success. I think the educational courses are part of it, and understanding how a house works and how homeownership works is a part of it too. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just, like framing, plumbing, just all that random stuff that you don't normally see or think about when you're just in a house. Yeah, it's so cool to like see it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've been experiencing all that stuff
you
here. So, okay. Yeah, so you said the website.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that you mentioned earlier. I think it was when we were talking about the size of the houses. You told me to come.
Oh yeah, you told you to remind me.
Yeah,
we'll fit it in where it fits in. So I'm kind of like So we talk about how many hats we wear in our organizations, and I'm the marketing guy, but one of mine is also the data dork. So like I find there's a lot of things in measurement and numerics that fascinate me. This one fascinated me. We'll see if it interests anybody else. So we're talking about, we build modest houses, right? 1,100 square foot houses. So that used to be the norm. So I saw this chart. It was in one of these affordable housing summits I went to, and they were looking at, since like the 1940s, what percent of houses were built that were under, don't quote me exactly, but it was like 1,400 or less square footage.
Okay.
And in the 40s, it was like 85%. It's like 8% now.
Yeah, that sounds
and
right.
The line just consistently, and there's a lot of reasons. It's hard to be, especially as a developer, it's hard to profitably build 1,200 square foot houses. Right. And there's not a lot of people where profit isn't their motive, right? That are doing this stuff. But I found that interesting. We talk about generally the problem. And I talk to people way smarter than me, because I'm 4 years into this. There's a lot I don't know about how housing works and all the levers. But a lot of what they talk about is the supply side of it, and that there's simply been a lack of, especially starter homes is kind of the phrase that people are using now. It's called workforce housing 2 years ago. Now it's starter homes, effectively the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But no one's building them. And that's a big part of the reason of why we are where we are.
Yeah. I think I've heard of, in the last 3 years, I've probably heard of 2 different areas where, a developer was doing like 2-bedroom houses and that kind of stuff. But yeah, like it's so rare that people are doing that.
Yeah, it's going to take everybody. It's going to take subsidies on a federal level, in my opinion, to really move the needle, which is where we need to go. I mean, we're officially at the point where businesses are struggling to hire because people can't afford to work or live where they work, right?
Yep.
And it's affecting all sectors of the economy now, and I don't know if we're at break the glass emergency, but we're pretty close.
Yeah, and that's always an example that we give is just if you think of like downtown Appleton.
Yep.
Like everybody wants to go out and have nightlife and stuff, and it's like, well, you think about all the bartenders and waiters and
exactly,
everybody else that works down there.
Yeah.
But they can't afford to live there because downtown Appleton is so expensive. So where does that person live? Do they live out in Hortonville or something?
Right. And they're going to commute 45 minutes to work every day. It's hard. Yeah. So, and we're starting to spend more time in that space around advocacy stuff, because, even if we did build 40 houses, like that didn't solve the problem, right? Yeah. I mean, I want to say, we're thousands and thousands shy just in Wisconsin alone, let alone across the country, right? Yeah. Where we need to be. And we'll do our part, but I think part of it is simply raising awareness to the problem. Because it's going to take more than the generosity of our community, which has been fantastic. But to solve this on a national level, like we're going to need numbers that start with billions.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of money, but like you said, it starts with the education, the awareness, just getting involved.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges I've seen, and I understand, but the easy button is to focus on rental from a scale perspective. If I was going to, as a legislator, invest money into my community and I want to address affordable housing, I would say more often than not that money goes towards rental because it's scalable. I could spend this many dollars and I could put 3 or 4 people families in home ownership housing, or I could, build a 36 multiplex. Right. And in roughly the same footprint. And that's been kind of the playbook in what I've experienced so far. And I don't mean to disparage rental because it's important and it has a place, but I would say that our focus is disproportionately focused on it. I'm obviously biased. I work for a home ownership place and I know that. But I don't think that we talk enough about the impact that home ownership has, stability and safety wise and security wise, especially if you're talking about people on the lower area median income levels, right?
Yeah.
Who in many cases, excuse me, they've never had home ownership. We talk about it as an opportunity to generate wealth, right? Particularly if that's a 0% loan and what we're doing. That can be a real asset, and that doesn't just affect you; it affects your kids and maybe their kids. Because once you start moving up a couple rungs on the ladder, I mean, if you make good decisions, that translates to future generations of your family. I mean, the amount of stories we're fortunate enough to be around for 30 years. You start seeing the stories of like the kids who are first generation going to college stories, right? Like that stuff happens because housing is a super important fundamental foundation of that.
Right.
Safe
place to study and safe place to get a good night's sleep and meals on the table and all that stuff.
And conversely, Greg Hartjes, he's superintendent for
Appleton. Yep.
He actually just recently joined our board of directors. What a great resource. This
cool.
guy's brilliant. But one of the things that was really interesting that he said, and one of the first times I met him, was the converse is also true. Every time I want to get the quote right, so my apologies if I got it wrong, but every time a child moves, they essentially fall behind 6 months from an educational progress perspective.
That sounds completely true.
I can buy it, right? That makes sense to me. And think about how often that's happening if you're in rental situations and they're hiking it, or it's unsafe, or the landlord is a slumlord.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not bashing all landlords. There's some very good quality landlords out there, but sometimes our families, I see it. The properties aren't taken care of, their needs aren't met, and it's very expensive, and moving starts to become kind of regular.
Yeah. Even if you just look at social connections, emotional maturity for kids, just all that stuff that needs to develop alongside your education.
Yeah. It's, there's this more intention around health and housing nationally, and we're seeing it in our community too, and partnered with some folks around that concept that health, is more holistic than what we used to think of it. And a decent, safe place to live is now a building block of what actually, if you don't have that, the rest of the parts of the pyramid are going to be hard to build on, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that we're starting to look at it in those terms, and the more that we get that's a more long-term fix to some of our issues, the more I'm hoping that we see nationwide us invest in home ownership, because it's uniquely positioned to get people into a better situation. Again, I'm pretty biased.
No, I agree. Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Gosh, I think we solved all the world's problems here, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a thumbs up in the back, so I think that's...
Does that mean we nailed it?
Yeah.
This is your first one on your own, right?
This is my first solo one, yeah.
And you nailed it.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Kelly, he says that I deserve cookies.
I think I do too, right?
So we do have a couple of weekend events to talk about quick. So I'm going to hit this button.
Let's see what's happening this weekend in the 920.
Oh, I'm doing it. Okay. So I'm just going to go through these kind of quick. First one, we have Bored Teachers, The Struggle is Real comedy tour in Appleton. Friday, 7:30 p.m. at the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center. Bored Teachers, The Struggle is Real comedy tour features the funniest teacher comedians joining comic forces on stage for a night of laughter you do not want to miss. Put the lesson planning aside, set that red pen down, and come burn off the stress from the school year. Please note that PG-13 language is used during some sets. Oh, that's cool. Man, we love our nation's teachers too. They are also people that are very overworked. So
My wife's
thank
a
you,
teacher
teachers.
of 20 plus years.
Okay, thank you for her service.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah, it's tough. Let's see, what else do we got? Family fun night, Spring Fever, Friday, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The Salvation Army Croc Community Center, 1315 Lime Kiln Road in Green Bay. Join us for a family fun night, Spring Fever, on Friday, March 21st. Shake off the winter blues with fun spring-themed activities for the whole family. Admission is free for Croc members and $5 per person for non-members, but you can get free entry by bringing 2 non-perishable food items for the Salvation Army's food bank, or 2 personal hygiene items to support those in need. Mark your calendars, bring your family, and help us celebrate the season of renewal and giving back at the Croc Community Center. So that's very cool.
Absolutely.
Another possibly giving back to the community.
Absolutely, and a great resource for the community. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then on Saturday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., we have a daddy-daughter dance at High Cliff Golf and Event Center in Sherwood. It says our annual daddy-daughter dance will be held at High Cliff Golf and Event Center on March 22nd, 2025. There will be dancing, appetizers, soda, photo booth, and memories to be made. Make sure to sign up as pre-registration is required. So that's cool. I like those kind of events to give people a chance to just get out and do some stuff with family.
I don't know. So now I have almost next week an 18-year-old, which is kind of blowing my mind, and a 13-year-old. I don't know that I could drag either of them to a daddy-daughter dance. I did when they were younger, and I had some great memories out of that, for sure.
Yeah, that's more of like an elementary school kind of thing.
I don't think either of them are going to say yes to that, no.
Now they're like, we've got cell phones and friends and cars.
You embarrass us. But that, that's kind of part of like the rite of passage of being a dad.
Being a dad.
I feel like the longer the sigh I get from them when I do something obnoxious, like I'm doing my part.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
And that's, something that I've been looking forward to as well. Is like someday I'm going to have kids and I'm going to tell stupid jokes and they're going to be like, again, really?
Yeah. No,
it's just going to warm my heart.
It's good. It feels really good. I can confirm.
All right. We have Saturday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Weird wines and super soups tasting at Osorio's in Appleton. So that's 1910 North Casaloma Drive. Let's see. Join Candace, the wine guru, for a sampling of 5 of her favorite weird wines. She's got a gift for picking truly delicious wines you've never heard of. We'll be pairing up these wonderful wines with a sampling of 5 soups created by Chef Liborio. He's got a gift for making soups that feel like a hug in your belly. 5 wines, 5 soups, Candace's expertise, trivia, prizes, fun, all for $35 plus gratuity and sales tax. What a perfect way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Reservations are required. Call this number to order tickets, 920-955-3766. And then the final thing I've got, I'm not going to know how to pronounce this correctly, so I'm sorry if I say this wrong. I'm going to say gua sha and good night. It's Saturday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Nest Co-work and Club, 111 North Broadway, Suite D, Green Bay. Join us for an evening of relaxation and self-care hosted by Tina Ramirez of Inspired Beauty and Wellness at the Nest Co-work and Club. Attendees will learn skincare basics, a gua sha routine, and will be guided through the steps of a mini facial using professional skincare. Let's see. Tickets will include professional skincare samples from Circadia, a gua sha tool to take home, infused water, and light snacks. I still don't know what gua sha is, though.
I'm Googling it after this, for sure.
We recommend wearing comfy clothes, think cute pajama sets, and arriving with a clean, washed face. No other skincare is necessary prior to the event.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah. Very cool. So, that's what's going on. Anything else that you've got going on, Eric?
We have a Rock the Block event coming up.
Okay.
I should have wrote down the dates. I have all these notes of things I was going to cover, and I didn't have that one. Mid-May, Appleton West. It's an opportunity to do some home improvement type, more community type projects, light scale stuff, painting, mulching, that kind of stuff. volunteers opportunities, both from the community, individual volunteers, groups, corporate entities. If you're interested, foxcitieshabitat.org/rocktheblock. Would love to have you there. It'll be a good time. We'll have about probably 100 volunteers. It's a Thursday, Friday, and a partial morning shift on Saturday. So we're all joining in to help the community handle some projects that maybe wouldn't have otherwise been addressed. So takes all hands.
Awesome. Very cool. Make sure to check out that website. And I think that's it from me. So again, thank you, Eric, for being here.
Absolutely.
And let's wrap this up.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. To contact the Kelly Davies Homes team for all of your buying and selling needs, call 920-791-9047. Find us on Facebook at the Kelly Davies Homes team or go to kellydavieshomes.com.